Hello, everyone. Thank you for tuning in to this week's edition of the Boerne Brew here on Boerne Radio, 103.9 FM and 1500 AM. And you can also listen on Boerne Star websites and Boerne Radio websites. I'm the host of today's show. My name's Kerry Barboza, and I'm the sports editor of the Boerne Star. And joining us on today's Boerne Brew is Boerne champion head coach Blaine Ellis. Coach Ellis, thank you for coming out on the show.
Kerry, thanks for having me.
Well, we've had the two head volleyball coaches on from Boerne ISD to talk about their seasons, and we're going to try to do the same with football. So let's talk about Charger football. Had a great season in 2025. Won 9 games, first time since 2021, and that was also your last playoff win. Back in 19, you guys had the best season in champion history. You went 13-2, and this has been the best season since. What stood out to you about this season and about this year's team?
One thing we talked about with this team is just the chemistry that they had and the buy-in that they had. That was a huge difference for us this year. They did a tremendous job. Great leadership throughout the season.
Well, in 2019, you guys played in the state semis. That's been the best season by a Charger football team in the school's history. You lost to Fort Bend Marshall at College Station. Fort Bend Marshall had some kid named Devon Achan. He's playing with the Miami Dolphins now. I used to have nightmares about trying to stop Achan?
No, I don't, because a year after we faced him, he was the Orange Bowl MVP, and so that made me feel a whole lot better about trying to defend him.
Yeah, because he's doing it to everybody across the country, so he had a great game, but that was a pretty good team that he was part of.
Yeah, it was.
But anyway, so as far as the year, let's go back to last spring, because you didn't have spring football for the first time. I know you lost your OC, Kevin Brown, and then Josh Adkins, quarterback coach, he left. So did that help you or hurt you not having the spring game, or did that not matter?
I think it did help. In today's world, you can do so much more during the spring, and so a lot of guys are moving away from spring football because of that. Years ago, you couldn't get footballs out, you couldn't do anything, and so spring football was a big deal. Being able to do it, you had a chance to get out and do some things that most people couldn't do. Well, now most everybody can get out and get timing down, throwing routes, things like that. Spring football is really good for your big guys, your O-line, your D-line, because you can really rep and see what they can do. We felt like last year not doing spring football was an asset for us. So
yeah, you lost Kevin Brown. He took a head coaching job, and then Josh Adkins, he's from Smithson Valley, and he goes back to Smithson Valley, and he wins the state championship this year. So I can't blame Josh for going back, and I like Josh. He's a good guy. So you had to wait to get a new OC, and you weren't sure who your coordinator was going to be, what the offensive, system was going to be exactly, so you kind of had to wait. Who ended up taking that spot?
So Coach Mangold's on staff. We knew that when Coach Brown left and Coach Adkins left, we knew that we wanted to be super protective of who we brought in. We feel really good about our group, and we want to protect that group. And so we were patient. We took a while to try to find somebody that we felt like was a good fit, and we felt like Coach Mangold was a great fit for us. He was on staff, and again, like I said, we're going to be super protective. And so we knew what we were going to get out of Coach Mangold, and he was able to fill that role and did a tremendous job for us this year.
He'd been with the program for several years, and I think his dad played at Smithson Valley. Didn't they win the state championship or something, his dad?
Medina Valley, yeah, he did. And so his dad's been a long-time head coach in this area, and so that's a great asset for him too.
Yeah. So that is Blaine Ellis, head coach of the Boerne champion football team. We're talking about the 2025 season. Had a great year, 9 wins, went to third round of the playoffs, played Thanksgiving weekend, which is always kind of a metric to measure a high school football season. So at one point, the team was 2-2, and you were 1-2 in district, with the only district win at that point was to Seguin. You won in a shootout, 57-50, but you lost Smithson Valley and you Braunfels. No shame in losing to those guys, the top 2 teams in the district this year. But, at 1-2 in district, were there doubts maybe amongst the players? Could you sense anything like that?
Yeah, I think that's another testament to our group, talk about the buy-in that we had, just that their attitude of belief every week was incredible. We're 2-2, we're staring down the barrel of, hey, are we going to make the playoffs or not? That was a reality. And we knew what we talked about all year long was going into that Seguin game when we started district, in the challenging district that we were in. Our mantra was, hey, playoff football starts week 4 for the Chargers. Every week is a must win. And that was our mentality all the way through the end of the season, starting at the Seguin game. So as far as doubt and disbelief, I don't remember seeing that in our players or anybody like that, or even our coaches. Our coaches did a tremendous job of continuing to put their best foot forward and having that playoff mentality.
Well, Seguin is the shootout, 57-50, like I said. And last year, the teams combined for over 100 as well. What was the deal with those guys? Because you guys always, I don't even know what the score was last year, but it was about the same. And what was it about those two games when you played Seguin? They had a great quarterback for one thing, but both of you scored a lot of points.
Yeah, I just think, like you said, I mean, they're a tremendous team, and I feel like we were a tremendous team, and we knew it was going to be, going into that game, it was going to be another shootout. Corey Daly's a great quarterback. He's going to Pitt, and he does just a tremendous job of extending plays, and so we knew we had to try to limit explosive plays and ended up on the right side of it this year.
And was he 6'6", 6'7", something like that?
Yeah, I feel like every time I look at him, he gets longer.
Yeah, he grows. So that's quite an advantage to be able to see over your linemen sometimes, but so you lose to New Braunfels and Smithson Valley at home, and then there you go on a 4-game district winning streak. You beat MacArthur, Victoria East, Wagner, and Piper to close out district with the 4 wins. And I believe the Wagner win clinched. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Clinched a playoff game. And that was your first win at home. That was Halloween. I think that had much to do with your opponents, right? Because you lost to Smithson Valley and New Braunfels at home. So it was hard to get a home win, but when you finally got it, it did well for you guys. Yeah.
Again, that's a testament to our district and some of our preseason schedule as well. We're going to go schedule games that should be competitive for us, and we know they're going to be quality games. And so whether we're on the road or at home, it's going to be a tough game.
At what point during that 4-game district winning streak, because then you won 2 playoff games after that, so 6-game winning streak, at what point did you kind of feel like, yeah, we're gelling, we're playing where I want us to be right now, we're starting to kind of hit our stride right now? At what point did you feel that?
I would really say, kind of like you said, that Wagner game was where we turned the corner. I'm going to go back to our 24 season, and that win against Wagner was huge for us in 24 because that was our first win against that program in school history. And so this year going into the 25 season and where we were sitting at that time, we knew that we get this win, we secure a playoff spot. And so our kids going into that knowing, hey, we can play with these guys, and just the belief that they had, that 24 season really impacted us, I feel like, this year as well. That was our signature win in 24.
Yeah.
And so we felt like that really helped us and gave our kids an extra swagger this year.
I thought that the Wagner win last year in 24 was your best game of the year, offense and defense. And then I thought this year, one of your most complete games, there was probably a few, but I thought that Piper game was just a great game for you guys. So you go into Piper and basically you have a playoff spot, but that was you were playing for seeding at that point, weren't you?
Yeah, we were. Going into that game, we knew we had to win by 7 points or more to secure at least a 3rd seed and not a 4th seed. And so, that was a huge game for us. And we went in, pushed all the chips in the middle of the table and said, hey, and we felt like our playoff bracket would be a whole lot better too if we were able to execute that. And so that was huge for us this year.
Yeah, that was just a great win. And, they're a tough place to play. They're a good team at home. They're a good team in general, but they're tough at home. And I just thought you guys faced adversity of that game and the way you came back and responded every time. And then, of course, we'll talk about Brogan. Just the home run shots to him deep from Julian on those throws was just I don't know how many you had that game, but that was quite a season between those two, the passing and catching between the quarterback and the receiver this year. So you beat them 51-44. You go to the playoffs. You play Southwest, and Southwest has had a good run the last couple of years. I think they were 8-2, but you guys basically manhandled them. It was, 41-14, I think, was the final on that one.
Yes, sir. They were another good opponent. We felt good about the matchup. Felt like if we went in and took care of the football, took care of us, and made sure we played to our capabilities, we felt like it was going to be a good matchup for us.
That was a good win for you guys. And actually, let me make a correction. I said the Wagner win was their first home. I think it was the week before.
Victoria East.
Yeah, that was the 24th. But you had lost 3 before that. So was there any concern about playing at home? Like I said, I think probably that Laredo game was probably the one you'd like to have back. But, those other two, you're playing against really good teams. So was there really any concern about not winning at home at that point?
No, not necessarily. I think a benefit for us is our kids loved getting on the road and playing on the road. I think that's pretty unique for a team. I think scheduling that, and we'll probably talk about this here in a minute, but scheduling those games, those long road games early, really, I feel like prepares us on the back end.
Yeah, well, let's talk about it. You go to Laredo early in the season. I think first game, I believe, in August. It's about 180 degrees down there when you go, but you guys still win that game. And then the week before Thanksgiving, after you beat Southwest, you go back to Laredo, second trip down there, and you face Pharr-San Juan-Alamo, who I believe was undefeated.
Yes, sir.
Yeah,
they were 11-0 at the time.
Yeah, and they were a good team. But how did that first trip down to Laredo, that long drive, kind of help prepare the team for the drive in November?
Yeah, you look at our guys. We've been playing down there for the last, I want to say 6 or 7 years.
Yeah.
Our kids in our community are used to that. And so them getting on a bus and traveling to Laredo was really, I think, just second nature for them. And so that wasn't a big deal for us, and we knew that. And so that's, being in Region 4, we know that, hey, we're going to end up going somewhere down there in the playoffs. And so that's the intent behind doing that. And I thought it was a huge benefit for us in that second round game.
Well, and you faced Pharr-San Juan-Alamo. It wasn't 180 degrees in November. I think it was 120, but still, it wasn't bad. So you go down there. That game kind of drew some attention, social media. There was a couple official calls. I don't like to blame officials for things, but there was some calls that they missed, both sides, I would say. And there was a video that got posted of Brogan. He caught the ball, he got stripped, picked it up, and ran it in. Everyone was saying that should have been an incomplete pass. Barstool put it on their social media, and it got 1 million views and about that many comments. What were you telling the team during all that, when all that was going on?
Our guys were great, and they were able to really just kind of move on from it. A win's a win in our book. And so we were all in on New Braunfels and in that third round. So, our guys handled that very, very well.
We were talking when we left. Esteban and I had done the broadcast, and we were at the elevator waiting to come down from the press box and had all our equipment, and we met up with the Pharr-San Juan people there at the elevator, and we were talking about the game, and one of them said, yeah, we're used to it. We're from the Valley. We always get bad calls. We pointed out, we said, hey, there were bad calls on both sides. What did you tell the team about the officiating? Because it's not something they can control. I know there was a couple calls that you disagreed with, and you kind of let the officials know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so, our message to the guys is focus on what you can control. Like you said, we can't control officials. We can't control how they see the game and where they're at. The only thing we can control is our mindset and our effort, and our guys did a tremendous job. And that was our message at halftime is, hey, let's come out and let's get this thing done. And the best thing I can say is our guys did a tremendous job. The officials that night, they were very consistent.
That's a good way to put it. They're very consistent. And like we told those guys, they missed calls, but they missed them both ways. And so that win, you put you to the third round, first time playing Thanksgiving weekend since 2019 season. And it's a rainy, cold, wet day at Alamo Stadium. You played New Braunfels, and you kind of figured you were going to see them, right? I mean, That's kind of what you figured. And it seemed like it was just a great back and forth kind of a game. You guys made a rally, I believe, second half. Came up a little short. I know there was a lot of sad guys. There were some kids crying, but I mean, what a great year. And it seemed like you were very proud of those. That seemed what I picked up on, how proud you were of those guys after that game.
Yes, sir. Very, very proud of our 25 Chargers. And after that game, coming out in the second half, I wish we had that first half back. I felt like we had kind of a slow start, but them going in at halftime, we made a few adjustments and came out and made a good run at it. And like I've been telling people, we just kind of ran out of time. But, I think if you look back at the season when we played New Braunfels, that was a back and forth game. That was they're just very well coached. They play extremely physical and they do a great job, and it's a great opponent. And I love playing those guys and would love to continue to play them as we go forward. But, again, just very, very proud of our guys, the resilience that they showed and what they were able to do in that second half.
There's Blaine Ellis, head coach of the Boerne champion football team, and he's talking about the 2025 season. And what a great year it was. 9 wins, third-round playoff game. Was that the game, the New Braunfels game, where the first play where Julian Navarrete hits Dempsey? Was that the first play where y'all scored on a touchdown?
I think it was about the second or third, yeah.
What was it about those two? We talked about a little bit earlier, but it just seemed like when you needed that 50-yard bomb, those guys could connect.
Yeah.
And Brogan was always behind the defender every time.
Yeah. I don't think there was anybody this year that Brogan couldn't run by. And, he's a unique talent. and he's one of the best receivers we've ever had come through Champion, and we've had a lot of really, really good receivers come through Champion. He's our all-time leading touchdown scorer in Champion history, and he's a very, very dynamic player. And when you got a guy that fast that can get that open, it's a great thing. But the other thing that a lot of people got to look at is you got to have guys that can get him the ball.
Julian,
and so we felt like Julian did a tremendous job of that, and those two guys had a great chemistry.
Yeah, they sure did. And the thing I noticed about Julian's throws on the deep ball, they were pretty much perfect. It just seemed like what helped Brogan is he never had to break stride. Those throws were just right in the breadbasket.
Yeah, and that's one of Julian's strong points is his ability to throw the deep ball. And so if you got a burner outside, that makes you a good play caller, that's for sure.
Yeah, and I talked to Brogan after one of the games. I think it was Southwest, and I said, "What's your time in the 40?" I think it was a hand time, but I think he said 4.2 or something like that. I think only Roland, our studio engineer, can run that fast. But
yeah, he, like I said, his speed is just unreal, and so he was able to showcase that in every game, I believe.
Yeah, now he's playing All-Star game, the big San Antonio Sports All-Star game coming up, and he's the only Charger playing in that game. 2 Boerne High players are also entered, but is he going to play in college or try to play in college?
Yeah, he's still kind of weighing his options and making sure he finds a good fit for him. There's several different schools talking to him right now, and the impact that the transfer portal has had on high school recruiting. And so a lot of it's happened a little bit later for high school kids because of that. And so he's still talking with people and kind of weighing out his options and making sure he finds a good fit for him.
So he definitely wants to play, and
yes,
and probably will. Yeah, he'd be a good fit somewhere just with his speed. Doesn't have a lot of size, but he can work on that.
Oh, he'll do tremendous wherever he goes.
Yeah. That is Blaine Ellis joining us. He's the head football coach of the Champion Chargers. I'm Kerry Barboza, and you're listening to the Boerne Brew. One thing I thought, talking about Julian, he had a couple ankle things, some injuries, but you had a freshman step up and fill his spot at quarterback. You think about it, last year he was in the 8th grade, playing on Wednesday nights or whatever night, middle school plays. And this year he's playing varsity. He's playing against Wagner. He's playing against Smithson Valley. And, what can you say about your freshman quarterback?
Yeah, having a guy like Ryder in your program is a special thing. A kid to come in as a freshman and be able to handle what we put on his plate. I don't think there's a lot of people that understand what we put on his plate this year as a freshman. He played both ways. He played offense and defense. He learned 2 positions, and one of the more dynamic positions, or the most dynamic position on the field, as a quarterback. And so there was a ton on that young man's plate all year long, and he handled it just tremendously. His ability to process the game at a high level is very good. And so we were very, very proud of him and what he meant to our team. He came in and he started against MacArthur and started against Victoria East and got us our 2nd and 3rd district win, and really kind of helped set our path to make the playoffs.
And his brother is quite a hitter. He's on defense, his brother, Roman. And we were talking about it. We got a picture of him body slamming some player in a football game. But he's a pretty tough defensive player, isn't he?
Oh, yeah, and they both are. Ryder played a lot of defense as well, and they both do a tremendous job, and they have a high standard for themselves. I think at one point in the Piper game, they're both in on the same tackle, and there were several times, but I can think of one particular on our sideline that just kind of happened right in front of us, and I think I said over the headset, that'd be a cool refrigerator pick for the Flugent's household. Yeah. So, and they'll both be back next year, so that's good. Yes, sir.
Well, UIL is getting ready to realign in February. I know Champion's going to stay at 5A. Looks like you'll stay D1. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
I know Carl Padilla. I know Carl. He does these projections about things, and I know he predicts games, outcomes of games, and he has that service that he does. And what are you hearing about where you guys might end up in this new district?
Yeah, at the end of the day, you never know what the UIL is going to do, and at the end of the day, we're going to play who they say we need to go play. But, it's fun to look at the big picture and try to project and see. Right now, some of our projections are that we're going to stay in Region 4, which is huge for us. There were a lot more Valley schools that came in. One thing I can say is that it's going to be different. New Braunfels is going down to Division 2. Piper's going up to 6A. Wagner's going up to 6A. Both Southwest ISDs are going up to 6A.
Wow.
So it's going to look very, very different.
So how many of the teams in the current district that you're in now, how many of those are leaving the 5A D1 classification?
It would be those three. It'll be Piper, Wagner, and New Braunfels.
So you may stay with maybe Smithson Valley. You may stay with those maybe.
Yes, sir. Yeah, I see that it's going to be real hard for them to split us and Smithson Valley up with our proximity and school size.
Yeah, and they're two-time defending state champs. But, Larry Hill, how much longer do you think Larry Hill is going? He's the head coach, won 2 state titles the last 2 years. He always has great teams, always goes deep in the playoffs, and has a great program there. Have you been able to learn a lot from him? Do you spend a lot of time talking to Larry Hill? Yeah,
I've got a great relationship with Larry. We talk, and always easy to pick up the phone and call him and pick his brain. And we have a tremendous amount of respect for him and his program and how he does things. And so that's the $1 million question. When's he going to retire? That's an answer for Larry Hill to tell you. But, he does a tremendous job, and really appreciate just the friendship we've developed in the last 4 years being in the same district.
Yeah, he lets you pick his brain, but he doesn't tell you all the secrets, does he?
Yeah, no. And I wouldn't expect, nobody would expect that either.
Yeah. It is Blaine Ellis joining us here on the Boerne Brew, and I'm the host of today's show. My name is Kerry Barboza. We talked about spring training earlier. You did it for Coach Kaiser, who you were his DC, you coached for him, and then he started spring training more than, I think it was 11, 12 years ago, something like that. You didn't have it last year, didn't have it during COVID, but you did well not having it. Are you going to go back to that, or I didn't ask you that.
That's something that we're still as a staff, kind of discussing and looking at. We'll make a decision here within the next month on, hey, this is what we feel like is best for the Chargers. We're just trying to read all the tea leaves and figure out what's best. Look at all of our returners and looking at projecting, hey, this is who's going to be in certain sports and things like that. I think that was really refreshing for us last year to not have to try to manage kids doing multiple sports, and it really, really benefited us in that way as far as being able to take care of kids as far as that goes. And like I said, that's the first time in a long time we haven't done it. Spring football was really important back many, many years ago because the rules were different and you couldn't get footballs out. Well, now you can do so much. Now the UIL lets you come in and work out, to get your weights before school, and then you can do all football during the period. So you're able to get so much done that it really helps benefit us. And so what we're looking at is, okay, what's the best fit for the Chargers right now? And we'll be making that decision, like I said, within the next month or so.
Yeah, and I guess when you look at it the old way, you would take off the pads in November, and then you wouldn't put them on till August. So you're trying to break up that 8, 9 months, 10 months without any kind of football practice type thing. So that's kind of right in the middle. But it seems like nowadays with colleges having these camps and all these kids go to these quarterback camps and these types of camps, that's really kind of changed it as well, hasn't it?
Yeah, and making sure those guys, because that's a huge part of recruiting now. Recruiting has just changed so much over the years. And for those guys to be able to go to those camps and market themselves is very, very important. And so that's another benefit for us.
What year is this for you, 3rd or 4th as a head coach?
I just completed my 3rd and getting ready to start up my 4th.
And how many years total at the school?
This will be my 13th year. At the end of this year, it'll be my 13th year.
So I've been in Boerne a little bit longer than that. But, yeah, so I remember when you came and had some great defenses. And I knew it was an adjustment, but how big of an adjustment from being defensive coordinator to head coach? Yeah,
it's a huge adjustment. You think you have an idea what the chair is like, but you never know until you sit in it. And so, what I tell people all the time is probably the biggest adjustment is you're leaving. So as the defense coordinator and a position coach at the same time, I had that group of guys, that group of 8, 10 guys that I was diving into and coaching and just really being super relational with each one of those kids in that group. And so that's probably the biggest thing I miss. In the head coaching chair, you don't have that specific position group that you're diving into. And so you find different ways to develop those relationships and find those guys. And so that was a big adjustment for me, going from just being totally in on defense, but now managing the entire game and managing both sides of the football.
Well, last question. What are the goals for the 2026 Chargers?
Yeah, our goals kind of stay the same year in and year out. We're going to relentlessly pursue a district championship. And then after that, we feel like if we can play on Thanksgiving, we've done a really, really good job. Yeah. And it sets our program up for a really high standard. And then after that, we talk about winning a state championship every year. And we talk about kind of why not us. And so, we have high expectations again for our program and expect us to do something very, very similar this year.
All right. Well, Coach Ellis, thank you for your time. Thank you for coming out on the Boerne Brew.
Thank you. Appreciate you guys having me.
Thanks for listening. We'll talk to you next time on the Boerne Brew.